All right, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining today for today's AIA approved course, Advantages of Thin Brick Systems Using Continuous Insulation. We've got Rob Schock on here from the Tabs Wall Systems team. He's going to be presenting today's CEU course. Before we go ahead and get started with that portion of today's presentation, my colleague Helen is going to give a quick little intro about AceLab, show you guys some of the tools and resources you can find there, as well as some information about what to expect after today's webinar and how to get in touch with today's presenters if you've got any questions that come up after today's event. So Helen, feel free to take it away whenever you're ready.
Awesome. Thank y'all. Hey, everybody. Happy 4th of July. I know it's kind of a funny week for probably most folks with the holiday on the 4th, but I hope that everyone has a good time. A couple things that I want to talk about today. First and foremost, I'm going to talk about how to get in touch with Rob and what to expect after this webinar. Then I'm going to show y'all a little sneak peek of some things that are coming that I'd love to get some of y'all early access to. All right, so here from our AceLab homepage, once you've completed the webinar, you're going to see a conversation started by our team with the team at Tabs. So you'll log back into your AceLab account, you'll come over to your conversations, and you'll see a note there. Something about this too, you probably won't have 256, 66 conversations. That's just for me. It won't be that overwhelming. It'll just be one. But we're going to go ahead and connect you with Rob and his team. They can help you out with anything, product literature, technical information on your active projects, but also for your firm libraries or general research. That being said, it really, really helps, especially with this kind of a system, for y'all to respond and put in, your typical project types and also locations, because that allows Rob and his team to tailor their literature for you and your firm. So please respond to that. And then one last thing about that too, we encourage you to open up your AceLab account, but you don't have to. You'll see an email come in from our team that'll say, hey, we're connecting you with this and this. This person's interested in this. You can respond from your inbox directly. So that's what to expect after this. You'll see emails from us as well. We'll provide you some additional resources. We really just want to make sure y'all are supported whatever you need for your project. You can always reach a brand by typing in their name like I did here. I went a little fast there, and then select brands there and you'll see tabs. So this is their page with information. You can always hit contact as well to follow up with these folks, some information, some videos about their products, and then you can also save these products in to your projects. So lots of good options for you here. Whenever you save a project in AceLab, what it does, I'm going to jump into what's coming up next, is it creates a comparison. So our team across the different categories, we will go ahead and take all that product information and serve you an apples to apples side-by-side comparison based on what's important, for that category. If the BIM, CAD, or spec files are publicly available, you'll also see them here. But just some examples, we're going to have information about design options for things like brick. We're going to have different colors of the brick available. And, again, dimensions as well. So is it thin brick? Is it not? Performance data, it'll all depend there. So this all exists currently in AceLab. What I'm here to offer y'all today is the ability to work with me to set up your firm library, which will allow you to easily use this schedules functionality. This will be available in September to the general public, but if you work with me, we can get you early access to this. What we're asking for in exchange is your opinion. So, come on in, give us a big old desk crit as you start using this. So what this is going to look like is all the products you've saved in your comparisons will be preloaded across all the different categories you see here. You'll have the ability to view, filter, sort, export this as a CSV you can then take to your drawing set. Couple other really fun things about this. Again, we're showing approvals. It'll also preload for you. Oops. Other projects that product's been used in, really helpful for certain firms. And then you'll also be able to say, this is my library. I've got a new project coming in. I like these products. I can just select them here and I can just copy them over into a different project. So really big time saver for y'all to start to have like a master kind of template and copying and pasting information, helping you move really quickly and efficiently and keeping records of all this kind of information. All these columns are custom for you. We know architects like to do things different ways. So this will all be very malleable based on what your needs are for a firm. Last but not least, this will also load up into Spec Planner. So this is going to be launching also in September. And what this is essentially a to-do list for you. So each project you have, It'll load up all these different things. You can say, oh, we don't need blown insulation on this project. We've got our sprayed insulation, looking good on weather barriers. Oops, we still need to figure out our metal shingles. This will also be something you can export. So lots of great stuff coming your way. And again, if you work with me, what we're offering right now is that we can build your library for your firm for free. And then you also get to kind of chat with me about your needs. Do you have repeat clients? How do you work with your contractors? And we can talk about all kinds of good ways to use AceLab to collaborate more effectively internally and externally as well. So I'll put a meeting link in, and I look forward to meeting with y'all. Thank you for letting me join today, and have a good 4th.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Helen. Keep an eye out in the chat for Helen's meeting link. We've also launched a quick poll, so if you want to set up a time to meet with Helen, feel free to say yes, and we'll reach out to schedule that time. A few quick housekeeping items from me. We did collect AIA numbers upon sign-in, so if you submitted it there, you're all set. We will also send over a form in the chat momentarily where you can submit your AIA number, and you can also indicate your need for a certificate if that's something you need. So keep your eye on the chat for that link as well. Other than that, just want to encourage folks to please submit any questions throughout today's presentation to the Q&A. We should have some time to get to some of those live. And if we don't get to your question live, we'll have a record of it so we can follow up with you after today's event. All right, that takes care of it for me. Rob, whenever you're ready, feel free to go ahead and get started.
All right. Okay, here we go. Okay. Well, welcome to today's presentation. My name is Rob Schrock. I'm the president and COO of Tabs Wall Systems. Our home base is in Grand Rapids, Michigan. But we manufacture a thin brick support panel for thin veneer and various types of thin brick, thin cast stone, thin natural stones. And one of the things we found out throughout the years is the walls seem to be changing. And one of the big things has been the use of, get this going right. Just a second. Here we go. So the use of continuous insulation. So today we're going to talk about the advantages of thin brick systems using continuous insulation. Tabs will report credits earned upon completion of this course to AIA CES for AIA members, certificate of completion for both AIA members and non-AIA members are available upon request. This course is registered with AIA CES for continuing professional education. As such, it does not include content that may be deemed or construed to be an approval for endorsement by the AIA of any material of construction or any method or manner of handling, using, distributing, or dealing in any material or product. And questions related to specific materials, methods, and services will be addressed at the conclusion of this presentation. Today, we're going to look at the health, safety, and welfare impacts of continuous insulation on applications involving thin veneer masonry materials, an evaluation of concerns for design, installation, testing, and code-related issues. Learning objectives today are to become familiar with the many possible design applications using thin brick, tile, and stone, understanding of the industry trend towards continuous insulation, understanding of the impact of the NFPA 285 flame spread test on adhered veneer applications, and how the Miami-Dade notice of approval can be valuable for your project owner, customer, and occupants regardless of location. We're going to take a look at the value of specifying properly tested thin brick wall systems, an evaluation of the concerns in design and detailing for thin veneer application over continuous insulation. So let's get started and let's look at a few project types that are successfully designed using thin brick. Throughout the years, I've been involved in this system for over 20 years, and hospitality is probably one of the majority users of the system. Every chain our brand, hotel brand, has used our system on one of their sub-brands. Also, multifamily residential has always been a high valued user of our product. And if you look at the last two photos that I've just shown, you'll see mid-rise and as we'll talk about a little later, we can go high-rise types of projects with Thin Brick. Again, hospitality has been a large consumer of products like ours. And the medical facilities, we've worked a lot on medical facilities in different areas of the country, and whether it be in the Southwest, as in this slide show on this part of the show, this is UMC El Paso Hospital, and then systems like ours have been used on hundreds of McDonald's restaurants and various other chains. They're used every day. And then a lot of mixed use developments, such as this project here in New York. And a lot of retail also is doing shopping malls. These projects all lend themselves to using thin veneer, thin brick, just because it's a light product. Again, a lot of different things you can do design-wise using thin brick. And take note of the picture on the right here in this slide, where there's a brick masonry wall, but not much to support it. You typically wouldn't do a building like that with full brick without spending a lot of money on steel. But when you're utilizing thin brick, you can do a lot of things weight-wise. So this next series of slides is going to show a project in Buffalo, New York. Thin brick and thin brick systems, but are an excellent choice for doing renovation work, such as indicated on these slides. And this was once a multi-use project in Buffalo, New York. And the original cladding that you can see here, this was all removed. And the original glass and metal cladding, all removed and replaced. And the new design idea was to create a masonry facade. The original structure was not engineered to support full bed masonry, so a thin brick wall system was chosen to provide a brick facade that met the original engineered structure. Here you can see the walls are being prepared for a new cladding system, and the WRB products are now being installed in preparation for the cladding to go over top of them. New sheathing and rigid insulation was added. And now the structure is mixed use office and hotel property. So now let's look at some key factors to consider for your next project. Here are some thin brick advantages. No foundation brickledge are going to be required. There's a substantial cost savings there. The design load for framing is L over 360 versus L over 600. No hung lintels required. You'll gain more usable floor space on the same building footprint. And there are year-round installation costs if available. That'll create a cost savings, especially up in the northern part of the country where you have a lot of tenting and things like that, the heating of the mortar and keeping the brick warm and so on for installing masonry projects in the winter. You don't have a lot of those costs when you're utilizing a thin brick system. You have potential lower labor costs installed by various trades instead of strictly just masonry trades. So there's some potential cost savings there. For the contractors, there's more design freedom, cantilevers, etc., due to the lighter weight of a thin veneer. assembly, and it's easily mixed with other lightweight facade materials like EIFS or siding products. And it's easier to change the facade in future renovations. Retail typically changes every 7 to 9 years in a lifespan of a retail facility. So there are several green energy and LEED considerations. A 1:7 ratio of delivered costs for thin brick versus full-size brick, including the units and the mortar. You can ship 9,572 square feet of thin brick compared to 1,637 square feet per truckload of brick. 165 pounds for thin brick versus 1,350 pounds of mortar per 100 square feet, and 907 million BTUs versus 4,114 million BTUs to produce the thin brick if it's made in a split tile format, and then 2,400 to 14,000 embodied energy to produce energy to mine, manufacture, and deliver thin brick versus full brick. So there's quite a potential green and LEED opportunities when using thin brick. So now let's talk about continuous insulation. Continuous insulation, that is insulation that is continuous across all structural members without thermal bridges other than fasteners and service openings. It is installed on the interior or exterior or is integral to any opaque surface of the building envelope. Continuous layer of thermal insulation mitigates thermal bridges through framing. It's important for steel framing, especially cavity insulation is not very effective. A practical, effective way to insulate concrete or masonry walls is considered by building science experts as a best practice for wood walls, especially in colder climates. And it avoids cold wall surface issues such as condensation, mold, discomfort, and ghosting. Condensation, everybody thinks, well, once it's summertime, you don't have any problems with weather, but when the air conditioning is running and you have metal studs, then you get condensation on those metal studs, and that can bleed through. And with the continuous insulation, it helps mitigate that. So creating a proper building envelope with continuous insulation, you have weather resistive elements, cladding, etc. It's an air control element, a support element, the wall stud framing, the thermal control elements, the vapor control elements, including the interior finish, and NFPA 285 assemblies. In talking about NFPA 285, protecting ability, its occupants, and its contents from fire is critical. Partially as a response to increased use of continuous insulation in building envelopes, enforcement of provisions requiring NFPA 285 testing has recently been stepped up. So let's see a flow chart to determine if your project requires NFPA 285 compliance. So is the construction type 1, 2, 3, or 4? If no, you can go to the bottom, follow that arrow all the way across down to the bottom and to the right, and it's NFPA 285 compliance is not required. However, if the answer to that is yes, is foam or plastic combustible insulation used? If yes, then NFPA 285 compliance is required. If no, next question is the cladding combustible and installed greater than 40 feet above grade. If yes, then compliance would be required. If no, then the last question, is the WRB, the weather resistant barrier, combustible and installed greater than 40 feet above grade? If yes, then NFPA 285 compliance will be required. If no, then it is not required. The purpose of NFPA 285 is to provide a standardized fire test procedure for evaluating the suitability of exterior wall assemblies that are constructed using combustible materials or that incorporate combustible components for installation on buildings. The National Fire Protection Association 285 fire test is a large-scale wall assembly test used to determine the potential for flame spread from one story of the building to another through the exterior wall. As an assembly test, products cannot be accepted as having passed the NFPA 285 test by themselves. They can only be considered as having acceptance in an assembly. What the NFPA 285 test demonstrates is that the industry is striving to prevent a fire from starting in the first place when combustible components are used within wall assemblies of buildings that are required to be of non-combustible construction. So here we have a slide with a testing structure diagram. As you can see, it's a two-story structure. We've got a window burner in the lower left. You can see the window burners right above. It's showing the flame at the window head, and then inside the structure there's a room burner. And this is a big structure on the interior of the facility. And the first room burner is ignited. After 5 minutes, the second burner is ignited, and a third burner is ignited after 30 minutes. Both burners are shut off, and residual burning is monitored until complete. And here you can see a picture of what that looks like. And so the NFPA 285 test requires a wall assembly mock-up spanning 2 stories with a test room on each floor. A single window opening is provided from the first story where a test burner is located. The burner is used to send a plume of flame through the window opening and up the exterior surface of the wall above. This simulates a fire that begins in an interior space, breaches a window, and spreads upward along the wall face. Such a scenario replicates a situation common in real-world fires. Now let's talk about continuous installation and comparing products in today's market. So today we have, and these are going to be just product types. You're all familiar, I'm sure, with what exterior insulation finishes are, and for stucco, and that's EIFS. And that's what we have a few axonometric drawings of what each of these are like. You can see all the different components. There are insulated panels for veneers. This product that you see here, it was in the States up until a few years ago. Now mainly it's up in Canada. It didn't gain a lot of traction, but nonetheless, it's a product that's out there, and I thought you should know about it. And then you have factory brick panels. So these are insulated panels that are put together indoors. So the weather is never a consideration while the assembly is being made. However, there are some limitations because they still, even though it's done on the inside and manufactured indoors, a product like this typically is not going to ship with a grouted complete system because of the racking that occurs during construction and installing of the wall panels. There are cement boards with insulation on them that are prefabricated. Those can be assembled in the field, and then a field installed, what I call lick and stick application, that takes place in the field, and they put some type of brick or stone over that. And then we have cement board SIP panels, so structural insulated panels, you can see in this photo. These are pre-engineered and fit together as an assembly. These are larger panels that are manufactured and then shipped out with cement board on both sides. And then you have wood board structural insulated panels, such as what's shown here. Now these you're going to have to install a weather-resistant barrier over top of before you can put any thin brick system or thin stone system on the outside of those. And then there are concrete forms such as these. Again, these are insulated, and they fill these with concrete. And then they have members that you can see, the structural members on the interior, and you can fasten through the insulation into those to apply any fasteners that need to be installed to hold your veneer on. And then there's insulated sheathing. This isn't necessarily for, this is just a metal sheathing. So you're not going to put any other products on outside of this, but it is an exterior finish, and I thought we should show it. So foam insulation boards, there's several different types. We have rigid foam sheathing, which could include expanded polystyrene, phenolic, extruded polystyrene, polyisoanurate, and spray foam, and then magnesium oxide panels. And there are some others: rock wool, fiberglass boards, fiberboard, etc. There's many that I'm not aware of, I'm sure, but those are the main ones that we see in the field. And so we've made up this quick little chart here to talk about the R value per inch. So EPS, expanded polystyrene, is typically going to have an R value of 4 per inch. A phenolic boards, those are going to have an R value of 6.8. That is the highest performing board out there to date. I know there's going to be some new products coming out later this year, and I'm sure I'll have to edit this. But until then, this is my chart. XPS is going to have 5 R value per inch, and polyiso is going to have 6. And then the MGO board is the magnesium oxide is going to be 6.5 per inch. So some pretty high performing products out there available, lots of choices. These are just a few brands. Carlisle, they make a foam board. Kingspan, they make several different types of what we just talked about. And then DuPont, their latest product is that Armor Wall with the magnesium oxide, and has some great structural properties to that product. So the performing requirements of foam sheathing. So foam sheathing must resist wind pressures as part of a wall covering assembly. Are 703.1.2 in the ASTM. And then cladding or furring strips secure foam to resist negative suction design wind pressure. Typical foam sheathing fasteners during installation are intended for temporary wind conditions only, unless otherwise designed to resist full wind load. Because typically when you're putting rigid foam on, you're putting other cladding that's going to have fasteners going through it all the way to the structure. So the foam sheathing fasteners are there basically just to hold it in place, because there's going to be other fasteners that are going to add it to the structure. And then foam sheathing material must span between studs when not used as an oversheathing, and have adequate bending strength to resist positive and negative designed wind pressure. So there's many impacts of continuous installation. And these are some things that you might consider. The green buildings is that performance been satisfied or exceeded? Potential is great for that. Fire requirements can be satisfied or exceeded. Moisture requirements, again, those can be satisfied or exceeded when using continuous installation. And practical requirements are addressed, like the fastening options we talked about, using siding installation, assembly details and options. And economics, affordability requirements are addressed, because the rigid foams in the overall insulating properties, using the proper rigid foam, if you pay the money up front, typically you're going to get the rewards down the road long term on the foam insulation. So there's a lot of impacts to consider when looking at a rigid foam and a thin veneer system. So when choosing your system, have they gone through and done all the testing? Are they meeting all the different compliances? Have they completed an NFPA 285 with the whole assembly, not just their one product? So compliance with NFPA 285 is very important. Compliance with the energy code is equally as important. And there are changes in fasteners for different veneer installation. You need to consider that, because any good system is going to have the proper fasteners for the complete system, and they'll have done the testing for it. And by using continuous insulation, is that going to help balance your HVAC and the control of vapor drive? When you're using continuous insulation, you're going to be able to reduce the building footprint so that you can expand your interior square footage versus having that brick ledge on the outside of the building just to hold up masonry. And one of the big considerations when you're designing this is your window framing, the flange changes, because you've got to take that all into consideration, because all these components of the system don't include, what type of window system you're using, and those all have to be addressed. And you should speak with your manufacturers about how to resolve those details. And there are some potential stud framing changes when using continuous insulation. And how is it going to integrate with the framing requirements, stud sizing, connections, wind, upload, uplift, and load path, etc. So let's talk about changes in framing. So the changes in framing, once you get beyond 2-inch thick rigid insulation, you're going to need to add some framing members. If you look at this picture here, right above that dark blue flashing tape. Now that's the inside corner of this framing assembly. And once you get beyond 2 inches, you've got to add some backer to fasten A, the foam, and B, any veneer system that goes on there, or siding products that go on there, because there's got to be some nailers. Because once you get past that, 2 inches, then you literally pushed everything beyond those 2 inside corner studs. So this picture here is showing there's not sufficient framing. So you're going to have to add studs there in order to complete that. And again, here you can see how they addressed a door opening. They added a lot of framing there by that door opening. But any windows and doors, once you get, depending on the window that you choose, you're going to need to make sure that there's sufficient framing. There's a lot of different types of foam out there. Here's a product that acts as a rain screen too. You can see all the different pathways for moisture to get behind this metal panel system that you're looking at. And it's a good way to keep moisture away from the building. Fasteners for insulation is a big deal, because the fasteners available in North America and especially made in North America, are of limited choice. You want to check with your wall system provider as to how thick your insulation can be. Not all wall systems manufacturers have engineered fasteners for their systems. And not only just for their systems, but if you've got a design calculation that says you need 4 to 6 inches of insulation on the outside, that's great. They can make that foam, but chances are there's not a readily available fastener for that. So you need to really look at what type of product you're going to use, and you want to choose one of those rigid foam insulations that have the higher R value per inch, so you can reach your design criteria in what R value you're trying to hit with the thinner wall section. So there's a lot of things to consider. Wind, positive pressure on the front wall, suction on the side, suction on the rear, and uplift on the roof. There's a lot of things to consider. And when you're looking at full brick or thin brick, no matter, you've got contraction due to temperature decrease and expansion due to temperature increase. And shrinkage and creep, this all occurs within a rigid foam system. So you want to have the lightest product available that you can use for that masonry wall. So here's a cutaway of an exterior wall covering assembly. You've got a cladding material and fasteners, a minimum 3/4 inch thick wood furring strip, or a minimum 3/4 inch WSP, the thickness of rigid foam sheathing as required. Optional wall sheathing is required by the building code. Could be gypsum sheathing, could be a CDX, and wall framing per code. Is your structure need wood or steel studs? And the fasteners are typically done by design of the system. Most good systems are going to give you a fastening schedule. So you want to check with the fastening schedule of the cladding. At the end of the day, the fasteners are typically going to go through the rigid foam to the framing. So at the end of the job, that's where most of your fasteners need to occur. You don't need to have a complete battery of fasteners to hold that insulation on when you're going to be putting tested fasteners from your veneer system manufacturer. So the Foam Sheathing Coalition has this chart on their website, and they've determined what the fastening requirements are for different thicknesses of insulation. And, they're showing, what penetrations, the minimum and maximum penetration is needed for going into steel studs, wood studs. And typically for most projects, on this chart anyways, you're going to follow that 25 PSF schedule. And this chart, again, it's available on the Foam Sheathing Coalition, their website. And the Foam Sheathing Coalition is currently testing for heavier weights up to 30 pounds per square foot. So let's look at some of the fatigue failures of fasteners. And typically this occurs when you've got, too much weight and you didn't prescribe the proper fasteners, which is why it's very important that the system you choose has done the testing, and you're using their prescribed, your system manufacturer's prescribed fasteners. And the systems that are available today are typically going to avoid a project like this. Now, this product was available 40 years ago, maybe 45 years ago. And this is why we don't glue thin brick on directly to the foam sheathing, because ultimately the glue or the brick is going to work well. The adhesive that's used to glue the brick to the foam is going to work well, and the foam is going to work well, except once you put the glue to the foam, these foams aren't typically, and I can't say all of them because now with Dow's product, their product is quite strong. It's structural, but the rest of these foam boards are not. And so systems like this, again, this photo was taken back in the early 90s, and but with all the freeze thaw and the moisture gets through the mortar and the brick, gets behind there, and the hydraulic pressures push this veneer off the wall. So we've come a long way since then. Another issue that you have when you're direct applying and not putting control joints in a project, you'll get cracking patterns like this and delamination, bonding failures like this, because there was no method to remove the water that got through the mortar and to the backside of the veneer, and it pushed the product right off the wall. A lot of times on some of these projects, there is potential for impact damage, but typically, when you have an area like this, you just take the injured areas off, and then you can repair each area, and you don't have to take large sections off. But again, we're not seeing a complete system behind this. It's wasn't using an engineered system. So thin veneer details over continuous insulation. And so now I'm going to show some proprietary details. So here you can see you've got a substrate, an interior, and then you've got an insulation board on the outside of that with a building wrap in between the insulation and the sheathing. And then you have your insulation board. And then behind that, you have a rain screen product. And then we have, in this photo, we have our tabs panel, which is supporting the thin brick. And then the brick on the outside of that, we're using a proprietary adhesive to adhere the brick to the veneer. And with that rain screen in there, it's optional. It's not required, but with that rain screen, it provides a great way to remove any water. So there's many types of projects that, like I mentioned in the beginning, many opportunities, design opportunities. You can see this hotel is in Owensboro, Kentucky. And every bit of masonry, other than some of the landscaping that you see on this project, is a thin veneer. There's thin brick and thin cast stone put on the tabs panel. And there's a lot you can do with those, with the system, a complete system like this. And there are some projects out there utilizing, scratch and lath systems. And one of the things that you want to make sure you do, and you're utilizing that type of installation. You can see in this picture, we're keeping the thin veneer up above the ground. That gray slanted area would be at the top of the landscaping, and they're 1.5 to 2 inches above the final grade there. But then they're also using a weep screen to allow moisture any moisture that gets behind the brick and into the grout to remove itself. And here we see another cutaway, scratch and lath. There's a lot of pieces and parts of this, but one thing, when you're using scratch and lath, it does take a little bit more time because you've got some curing time for the scratch coat and the bond coat. And depending on what area you're in, there could be some inspections that take place as well. This is what the bottom of that weep screed is going to look like. You do get a little more design freedom utilizing the scratch and lath because you can put these odd shaped stone, either natural stone or concrete manufactured stone. So rain screen design walls, those are up and coming systems, but these walls tend to be heavier and using a heavier veneer, but then also, as you can see, there's a lot of heavy gauge steel, but the one advantage they have is that they can put a lot thicker insulation behind them, as you can see here in this slide. So here we have, it's one of our final slides, just about wrapping up. Here we have our NFPA 285 test assembly that when we performed our test. So in this assembly, we've got, this was over metal studs and one layer of 5/8 gyp board. And then we used our standard flashing around the exterior perimeter. And then we have Henry Airblock MR17 fluid applied WRB. And then we have our Kingspan Cooltherm K15 50 millimeter insulation. And then one of our latest products is our Tabs FRM 5 millimeter rain screen. That rain screen is Class A rated. And it was also part of our NFPA 285 assembly, as you can see. Then we have our Tabs 2 panel. And for the test, we use modular spacing. That's the most common spacing for brick that we have. But anyways, we assembled it according to the specs that were given us. And if you need more information on that, but then it could be that your team wants to use a different brand of insulation, different type. You know, we use the Kingspan Cooltherm K15, which is a phenolic insulation, but I have engineering judgments available for all different rigid foams that are on the market today. If you need that for your project, feel free to contact me or my team, and we'll provide you with a copy of those. And finally, one of our most recent tests that one of the things I'm very proud of is that we are the first thin brick assembly to pass the Miami-Dade TAS 201, 202, and 203. We've received our notice of approval. We did pass that. If you want more details on that, we do have that available. And one of the surprises at the end of that notice of approval from the Florida engineers, the engineers report states we have no height restriction in using the Tabs 2 panels for adhering thin veneer to your structures. That is a first in the industry. I thank you for your time, and this concludes our presentation today.
Awesome.
Hand it over to you, Bo.
All right, looks like we do have a few questions in the Q&A. If anybody has a question, now is a great time to submit that. We've got some time to get to some of these out loud. So if it sounds good to you, Rob, I'll just kind of start at the top and we'll see how many we can work through.
All right.
Okay, first off, we have from Brandon, I'm curious about the durability, lifespan, and maintenance of thin brick compared to normal brick. Have there been any studies done on this?
So my background is basically seat of my pants from the street. We have projects out there with our system and that have been out there since the early 80s. All the products, for example, in our system, now, you know, our steel that we use on our panel is a lifetime product. It's when you consider that like a metal roofing, a standard metal roofing, a G60 metal roof, typically, if you look at the the history, they've the standards they put forth, those products exposed to weather, G60 though on a roof panel, initially back when that product first started coming out, with the G60 requirements or standards, those were a 70-year lifespan. Our steel is G90 structural grade 33, and it's also covered by a veneer. It's never exposed directly to the weather or sunlight. And also we have a thermal embossed coating in it, and it's stucco embossed so that water trickles down it. And we've got a lot of testing. Our product is the most thoroughly tested thin brick system that's out there today. So lifespan, it's a lifetime product. The brick that we put on our system, our clay thin brick, just like it's the same as a full brick. It's a lifetime product. It's just made thin.
All right, awesome. Let's see. When do we need to include the drainage mat?
Our testing is, and I'm not going to rattle off the numbers just because there's too many to remember, but we did our drainage test, and without the drainage mat, we removed 98% of the moisture. That test was just a gravity test. We passed the Miami-Dade without the drainage mat, but there's some areas I recommend it if you're in a coastal area, or if you know, if you're in an area with high winds. You know, we have a 3 millimeter standard rain drainage mat, but we also have a 5 millimeter, and we have our 5 millimeter fire resistant material product. So it's going to depend on the assembly too. If you're using a different, depending on the insulation that you use, I might recommend you use it on that product, just because some of those insulations have some fasteners that are going to protrude. And then you know, we have a handful of installers that work nationally. They don't do a project without it, just because it helps them in making the jobs look good at the end of the day, because it gives them, you know, how far they tighten their screws. They can make a really smooth wall out of it if they've got some adjustment with that rain screen.
Awesome. All right. Let's see. Is the NOA approved for use in the high velocity hurricane zone?
Yes.
Awesome. How is the rain screen portion of the system repaired in case of impact rupture?
So you're going to remove a section of the wall. You're probably, depending on the size of the impact, you're probably going to remove one panel. So that's a 4 foot by 4 foot area, and then replace it. But if it's gotten back to the rain screen, you probably have more problems than just that, because it's going to take quite a bit. We did an impact test after our NFP 285 test, and we shot the large missile at it, and the 2x4 didn't penetrate through the rain screen of our FRM product. So I'm not concerned about that. And again, the rain screen, the drainage mat, it's full of holes. It's made to wick water. So it's you know, that's not the bigger concern. The bigger concern is, you know, is there an impact that got through the building?
All right, awesome. Let's see. Next up, is there a minimum project size?
No.
No.
I mean, we sell our products nationally through distribution, and many of those distributors stock our products. There's going to be some minimum quantities of it, or some case quantities, things like that. But no, I mean, we've shipped 500 square foot jobs and 200 square foot jobs, but again, for small jobs, small residential jobs, we're going to direct somebody to a distributor that has some inventory.
Mm-hmm. All right, cool. Any freeze thaw cycle problems for the thin brick systems?
It depends on the system you choose. If you're choosing mine, no.
Awesome. All right, great. I think we got to this one on another question, but maybe just we'll recap real quick. Somebody asked, what is the projected lifespan for thin brick or thin stone insulated panels? I believe you said lifetime.
Yep.
Right, great. Awesome. All right, a follow-up on the drainage mat question. How is drainage accomplished without the drainage mat?
So I hit on it briefly, but I'll be a little more descriptive. So the tabs panel is we punch holes in it to bend out the tabs. So moisture is going to wick through the mortar, and it's going to get behind the brick. No matter how much sealer you put on it, the brick, if you're using an FBX brick that's got 2%, 2.5% to 5%, you're still going to get the mortar is never going to be that good. So there's going to be some moisture that gets behind there. It could be that there's some flashing that lets water get through behind it, but regardless, if the weather resistant barrier is good, moisture's going to get behind the brick, and it's going to get behind the panel. And our panels, A, they have the holes, and B, they're also embossed, and they're stucco embossed. So they've got dimpling, millions of dimples on the panel, and just like refrigerator steel, except for a little more extreme. And so that moisture is going to wick down that, and then it's going to remove itself at the base of each section where there's a starter flashing.
Mm-hmm. All right, awesome. Well, it looks like we are almost at time. The other questions in here are just someone's wondering about getting a PDF version of the presentation. Is that something you would provide?
We could, yeah.
Okay, great. And then another question is just about getting some specific details. So we have a record of that, Patrick, and we can make sure that you get any specific details that you're looking for.
And I will add this: when you have your projects, if you need some help detailing, that's what I do every day. So please reach out, give me a call. This is just a little snippet of tabs, and it's not telling the whole story because within the guise of AIA, we're not able to give a thorough go through of the whole system, what it does, all the different projects and everything we've done. But there's millions of square feet all throughout the country in all regions.
Awesome. All right, great. Well then, yeah, I just want to encourage folks, please grab any of the links from the chat that you might need. If you want to explore some more about Tabs Wall Systems products, we've got a link to their page in AceLab there. You can check out their products and some more about their company through that. There's also Helen's meeting link in case you want to schedule a quick session with her to go through using AceLab and get early access to some of our newer features. So feel free to grab any of those links on your way out, and we will have a quick post-event survey. If you're able to give us some feedback on that, super helpful for us to keep bringing you content that's relevant to you. And also feel free to drop any questions on that survey if you didn't enter it already. All right, great. Well, thank you everyone for coming out and for providing such great, amazing questions for us to talk through out loud. We appreciate your attendance today. And thank you so much, Rob, for an excellent presentation.
Thanks for all your attendance today. Have a great weekend.
Bye, everyone. Have a good one.